How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the TheBlueShifting. Welcome back to the burning Shibuya. So we're in the UA route, and I think we're going to end it today. We're basically at the exact same spot we were when we ended the center route, like the beginning of what became that end of chapter. It's also been a while. I had 2 weeks off of this because the first week I was really sick and just didn't do any videos. And then the second week I was still pretty sick and ran out of time before I had to start going back to work. But here we are again. So let's run it back real quick and just say what it was. We got some fun and really interesting story development. I don't know what everyone's opinion about the UA route is quite yet. I think a lot of you are holding back until I actually come to the end of it, but so far, especially after like thinking about it for a while, I'm actually a fan of it in the long run because UA specifically has so much interaction with the first half of the story that just kind of just doesn't become much of a thing. We get a little bit of insight when she draws her D sword in the main route. We get this idea of like who's who and what's going on, but she kind of embraces that delusion in the end, though we didn't really realize what that was. That was what happened. She basically realized her delusion and kind of became herself. But in this world, we've realized and learned about the inconsistencies where she's Mia. She's the one with the dissociative disorder. She's the one who basically picked up the mantle of her sister as a trauma response to her sister, Yua, pretending to be her and getting caught up in the group dive event. And so Mia, always looking up to Yua and wanting Yua to be better, just kind of never stopped being Yua and kind of started to believe in it. And that's really, really interesting. I think it's really fascinating. So now we're moving forward and we're going to see where this takes us in the end. But for now, let's jump on in, get moving forward and see how this ends up resolving. Because basically she wants to go back, I think, to where it all happened, the group dive happened. It's almost like we're now living in this kind of haze where we're going to be ignoring the world and focusing on what she wants. And I feel like for some reason something important is going to happen there, though it's been long enough. I can't remember why I felt that. Like, that there is something going to be there. Maybe someone's going to be waiting for us there. I could see Suwa being there because, he's such a jerk. He's in everything. Anyway, let's start up, shall we? With my body supported by Mia, the two of us began walking in the direction of Shibuya. Shibuya had transformed into a city of death. Everywhere you looked, corpses were strewn around the ground. Some were covered in blood, some had their limbs severed, and some had their heads crushed. Not even a shred of human dignity could be seen in the absolute hellscape spread out before us. Not a single glimmer of the city's former glory remained, and the only things it held were now death, ash, and despair, nothing more. Huge cracks tore through the roads, large scars indicative of how it could all come crashing down at any moment. Huge chunks of debris had fallen from the crumbling buildings, blocking our way. It was difficult to even walk in a straight line. Yeah, tell me about it. But none of that was enough to make us lose focus on our goal. Me and I marched on, completely disregarding the cries for help around us. Our destination was the building towering above in the distance, Cornelius Tower. The tower was still standing. The outer walls were crumbling in certain spots, but the structure itself had more or less taken the earthquake. It still stood straight and tall. As far as we could tell from the outside, it seemed that the lights were off on every floor. Maybe everyone had evacuated, leaving the building vacant and abandoned. Naturally, the lobby was completely empty. There didn't seem to be any electronics either, so the elevator didn't work. Our only option was to get to the rooftop, would be the emergency stairs. Amazing that we were just going to climb in a building. Like any building. I wouldn't trust any structures. While the details behind the group dive case had appeared online, I had done a little digging into the building. Cornelius Tower stood at 184 meters tall with 41 floors above ground. There was absolutely no way I could climb that many floors, not when I couldn't even walk straight with this headache. And yet, Mia kept on supporting me. Leaning on her, we climbed the stairs step by step, sweat dripping down our foreheads.
お父さんとお母さんは私が自分のことをゆあちゃんだって言い出して気を使ってくれたんだと思う。
Really? You think so?
私をゆあとして扱ってミアが死んだことにしたのかも。
No, I don't think that's true. I think they obviously had a favoritism going on and they favored Yua. I think that they were experiencing a lot of trauma, just like you. And with you being a giglomaniac, I think you imposed a delusion that they were readily willing to accept. She was talking to herself. I listened along in silence. Well, she probably didn't need me to listen. She was just talking aloud, and I just happened to be there.
昔からそうだった。私は生意気な娘だったから。両親はいつも私を腫れ物にでも触るかのように扱ったわ。
Aww.
ミアを死んだことにするなんてね。親はユアちゃんよりミアに死んで欲しかったのかもしれない。
Again, yeah, it sucks, but it's probably true.
それも全部私のせいだけど。自分がユアちゃんだと思い込んだ私のせいよ。ユアちゃんが死んだみたいに私も死ねばいいのよ。
Interesting. So that's why you're here.
ユアはどんな人だったの？
憧れだった。羨ましかった。たまにイラついたりしたけど嫌いじゃなかった。
That makes sense.
むしろ大好きだった。ユアちゃんのこと大好きだった。私のことを分かってくれるたった一人のかけがえのない人だったもの。ユアちゃんが笑顔でいてくれれば私はどんなに辛いことがあっても嬉しかった。いつも私のこと心配してくれたわ。心配させてるのが申し訳なくて私はつい冷たく接してた。それなのにいつも優しくて。
Which unfortunately made it worse. It kept making it like she'd feel guilty about it, and that would make her distant, and her sister would keep embracing her anyway, which make her feel guilty, which make her more distant.
ユアちゃん
Mia kept climbing the stairs, tears gently streaming down her face. Were they tears of regret, tears of sorrow, tears of guilt? That I couldn't tell. Probably all. The wind was stronger than I thought it would be on the helipad. A panorama of Shibuya's nightscape spread out right before our eyes, but now its former brilliance was nowhere to be found. The city had been fully engulfed in darkness. One could just barely make out landmarks like Tokyo Tower, Roppongi Bills, or the other buildings situated in Shinjuku in the distance. The Shibuya beneath our feet was veiled in complete and utter silence. There was very little light, allowing darkness completely reign over the ruined city. If it were noon, then Shibuya's new form would be nothing less than stupefying.
西条くん、もしよかったら。
What? Mia gently let me go, retracting the arm that had been supporting me. I immediately sank to the ground, not a single ounce of energy left in my legs.
一緒に飛んでくれない？
What a question to ask! Mia stared deep into the dark night. Fierce gusts of wind sent her long hair fluttering in the sky, hiding her expression from view. That was when I realized Mia had come here to jump, to follow her sister's footsteps. With that in mind, my answer was clear.
やだね。僕は死にたくない。なんで僕を監禁した女と心中しなくちゃいけないんだ。
I mean, that's fair.
そう言うと思った。
One step at a time, Mia walked toward the edge of the helipad, facing the strong winds head on.
そうそう。
Fetch V.
西条くんと
Can
予
you,
約
like,
しに行っ
stop
た
her?
セイラちゃんのフィギュア。
Suddenly, she stopped and turned around.
ちゃんと買ったのよ。とても可愛くてセクシーだね。すっかり気に入っちゃって、私の部屋の机の上に飾ってあるの。
Aww. That was the old her, too. Like, Mia, like, that was like the Mia shining through a little bit. The love of anime. A transient smile spread over Mia's lips. Of all times for her to have that, why now?
そんなこと言っても、僕は君に同情しない。
同情なんて求めてないわ。それじゃ、さよなら、西条くん。
Don't just let her go.
私を殺した人。私も、ゆあちゃんのところに行くね。
What Nishijo-kun had just said was very reasonable. It was strange, though. It made me feel lonely. There was this heart-rending pain in my chest. In the end, I had never been afforded the opportunity to confirm whether or not he was Shogun. Maybe he was telling the truth, and I was the one who'd gotten it all wrong. But even if I weren't wrong, there's no point in holding a grudge against him now. If only I hadn't asked Yua-chan to switch places with me back then. If only I had just gone to the offline meet myself, then Yua-chan would still be alive. Yua-chan hadn't deserved to die. She'd had so many friends. Her parents had loved her more than anything, and she'd been the smartest, most beautiful girl I'd ever met. And yet she had died anyway. Kusunoki Yua had died anyway. And when she had, Kusunoki Miya had disappeared along with her. She'd vanished into thin air, becoming a ghost. That was the choice I'd made back then. I could no longer tell whether I was alive or dead. All I knew is that Yua-chan wasn't here anymore, so I'd rather be dead. Jeez, it's so freaking dark. I stood at the edge of the helipad, where Yua-chan and the other four had jumped off that night. Looking down made me feel dizzy. The whole nightscape was pitch black and the lights in the city had gone out, and yet, even in that darkness, I could still tell just how high up I really was. I wondered how Yua-chan had felt when she jumped off here. She'd probably been terrified. I'm sorry, Yua-chan. I'm sorry you had to go through something so terrifying because of me. I'll be going too very soon. I will take the pain that you endured, the pain that I alone was supposed to feel, and engrave it into my body, Yua-chan. I took a deep breath. My heart and mind were at peace. I wasn't afraid of dying. I spread my wings. My arms lay in the empty air, and I closed my eyes. And then I stepped forward into the bottomless abyss before me. And with nothing there to support me anymore, I fell. Dang, I didn't actually think it was going to happen. The whole world turned upside down. There was nothing left to chain me back. Even though I was in free fall, it almost felt like I was floating. Floating amid the rumble of the wind. The ground was rushing toward me, the very same asphalt that Yua-chan had crashed into 2 months back. The hardened tar that crushed her bones, ruptured her organs, and sprayed her blood and gray matter across itself. I don't want to die. Just a moment ago, I hadn't been afraid to die, but the second I had lost control of my body, I'd been overwhelmed with a tremendous sense of dread. I don't want to die. Even if Yua-chan had died, I still wanted to live. This was just my survival instincts taking over. I screamed. I screamed from the bottom of my soul. I desperately reached out my hand to the distant night sky above me and knew there was no one that could grab onto it. But I reached out all the same. There was no end to my scream. I pleaded. I don't want to die. But nobody heard me. Nobody grabbed my hand. I simply fell, with the earth coming closer and closer. Dang. What? I had felt my body shatter in a million pieces, but that feeling had disappeared soon after. What the? When I came to, I found myself collapsed on the roof in Cornelius Tower. Nishijo-kun was in front of me. He still wasn't looking at me, but he was reaching his hand out even so. I had definitely jumped, no doubt about it. I'd definitely taken the nearly 180-meter dive and smeared right into the ground. But now I just sat there, staring at Nishijo-kun's hand, utterly dumbfounded. I even forgot to wipe away the tears streaming down my face. Nishijo-kun's words were blunt and curt.
君に死なれるのは困るんだ。まるで僕が突き落としたみたいじゃないか。僕は殺人犯扱いされたくないね。
Was that? Well, did he just make a delusion?
私、落ちたのに、自分で飛び降りたのに。
妄想でも見てたんじゃない。
A delusion? You're telling me that all those sensations, all that pain was just a delusion? That's impossible. It felt so real. Oh, fetch me. It's so like my dreams. Like I've said it before. I'll say it a million times. I have such vivid dreams. I have a very vivid imagination, and my dreams can really highlight this. There was a dream recently where, in the dream, I had an accident. My hand got crushed, and it woke me up because the pain was so like sharp and severe. Like I could still kind of think about it. Like it's like kind of horrifying that like dreams can be have that much sensation in them. I don't know if it it approaches what it would actually feel like, but it was painful enough to wake me up, and like that was ugh.
西条くん、ゆあちゃんはあんな痛い思いをして死んだんだね。なのに私、ゆあちゃんと同じ痛みを味わおうとしたのに、私は死にたくないって思っちゃったの。
Aww.
本来死ぬのは私だったのに、死にたくないって。もう飛べない。あの痛みを知ってしまったら、もう怖くて飛べない。
Aww.
私、どうすればいいのか。
今ので君は一度死んだ。
Yeah.
ユアの痛みを知ったなら、もうそれでいいじゃないか。
It's actually it's like creepily sweet in a really weird, twisted way.
これからはもう一度楠木宮として一から生きていけばいいと思う。ユアの分まで。
Aww.
ありがとう。ありがとう。
I reached for the hand that he'd extended out to me and took it. It was so very, very warm. I could feel his body heat through his palm. A warmth so comforting I felt my hand stop shaking. That's really gonna be the end? God, it's gonna be so much shorter than the Senna one if that's true. It is the ending. Holy crap, that was fast. It's interesting. It's one of these weird, like, inexplicable moments where, like, he just has this ability to suddenly miraculously start controlling his powers, but I also feel like part of that could just be the Noah 2 activation. The Noah 2 activating probably just gives a lot more solidity to delusions, right? Like, it basically helps, like... I think so my guess on how the Noah 2 works as a machine is it's basically a gigantic gigamaniac that can use the consciousness of so many people and observance of so many people to make much larger delusions and make them more solid and permanent. Yeah, so it's the same thing about like real booting, like the swords and other delusions, but most of the ones we see them do are very small. They're very like concentrated. The Noah 2 device, I think, just does that, but on a mass scale, and can use like the devices to expand that network. So like the idea is that you spread those devices around the whole world, it could just create delusions of the whole planet and enforce them. So I wonder if part of the reason why he seems to always stuff into his power almost without having to try is that once the Noah 2 is activated, it's enforcing him because he's a delusion, and so it makes his powers fully like manifest just as default, and that would explain a lot. Nitro Plus. Oh, there they are. Sisters to the end. And beyond. Sun and moon ending. Or moon and sun. Alright. Well, then in that case, I think we'll have to start the next one, because that was way shorter than I thought. So give me a second, and what we'll probably do is we'll probably jump to the last route I'm going to do before we do the true ending, which means I've got homework I'm going to have to do. I'm going to start the next route, and then whilst we're doing it, I'm going to do all the other routes so we can unlock the true ending. All right. And sure enough, there was someone there. We had positive. The extremely petite, possibly more so than Nanami. Oh, there you go. Could she be here to help me? Yes. This transfer student must be a professional exorcist. Yes. She acts frail, but that's all it is, an act. Yes. I feel like I did this almost perfectly on accident once. She must be here to kill Rimi. Wait. I should have saved. Wait, let me save. No, let me save. Because I feel like I've lost count. Oh no! The two of them should just kill each other. No.
Takumi-kun,
There, we got it.
私はここに殺すために来ました。悪魔を滅ぼします。
Demon Girl is my target. Even though the transfer student's eyes were welling up with tears, they were also filled with determination despite her timid appearance. I felt like I could trust her. There was no doubt that from the outsider perspective, her words were blatantly nonsensical. I was the only person in the sea of confused people who wasn't perplexed by her first words. In fact, I was screaming for joy internally, of course. I'm saved! No doubt, the Exorcist organization sent this girl to dispose of Rimi. Fetch yeah! Kill that bee!
タク、騙されないで。
Rimi's panicked voice rang out from behind me.
その転校生の狙いは、私じゃない。タクだよ。その子の言うことを聞いちゃダメ。悪魔さん、惑わすのはやめなさい。あなたはここで終わりです。悪魔はあなたでしょ。
うるさいな。
Right now, I didn't care who the real demon was, nor who my real ally was.
僕はブラチューと演奏をして毎日を平穏に過ごせればそれでいいんだ。お前たちがどうなろうか知ったことじゃない。とりあえず二人で殺し合ってくれると助かる。で、相打ちで二人とも死亡ってエンディングを希望。
That's so sad. Come on, Taku. Following these words, I could feel a rush of a rising unease spread throughout the room. A transfer student whose name I didn't know, and a demon girl who had only been in this class since the day before yesterday. Each glaring daggers at each other from their own separate corners of the room, the tension between them burning like a fuse trailing towards toward a pack of TNT. The homeroom teacher and the rest of the students were on edge from their seats, watching the intensity as the events unfolded.
いいよ。タクの言う通りにしてあげる。私も異論はないです。殺してあげろ。暗殺者。あなたを殺します、悪魔さん。
And then they both sprang into action. But that's not for now. Of course, that would never actually happen. Now let's go see if we get a new scene soon. Oh, alright, here's our first one. As the final class ended, the stuffiness of the school day gave way to the restful afternoon. Alone, Orihara Kozue plodded her way out through the front gate. Plodded. That's a great word. As she walked, her lazed motions and lowered head highlighted her frailty, and her knit brows and muddled expression. It seemed as if she were holding back tears. Having just transferred schools, Kozue felt isolated from her peers. However, that was only natural for her. She would never speak. Even when called on by a teacher to solve a problem or read from a book, she would just fidget in her seat, tears welling in her eyes. Not a single person in the school had ever heard her voice, neither student nor teacher. Kozue constructed walls between herself and them, and those made curious by the novelty of a transfer student were quick to drift away. Even then, one or two inquisitive classmates were still determined to speak with her, but she had no desire to open her heart to them. Still, she never felt that her situation was particularly urgent. Even though it was only one person, she did have a friend. An older girl who was not in her class. Given that Kozue was new in town, the girl was the only person of all Tokyo that she could confide in. Other than her, she felt she did not need to make friends. She did not need to get along with her classmates, and she really wanted to continue living her quiet life. On this evening in Shoto Park, one could hear the sound of children playing alongside the pond's bank. A boy happened to pass right by Kozue on the trail to the water slide. In his side, not slide. In his hand, he held a petite mirror that displayed the face of its owner. Two housewives, likely the mothers of the children at play, were chatting on a bench. Kozue could hear their voices clearly.
三面鏡の怪奇ビデオっていうのがものすごく怖いのよ。 あら、そうなの？私それ知らないわ。でも、三面鏡って？
I mean, a trifold mirror, that just means it has like these two windows that open up, so it has a mirror in each like thing. Like the bathroom I had like in my house growing up had a trifold mirror.
ほら、あれよ。鏡。3つ並んでるやつ。
ああ、鏡ね、三面鏡。それで、どんな怪奇ビデオなの？
Kozma stopped dead in her tracks near the bench. Her forehead became sickeningly slick with sweat. The women put their talk on pause, glancing questioningly at the odd girl before then, suddenly becoming aware of herself. Kozma rushed away from the park. Mirrors. For Kozma, they were a source of great psychological trauma. Not wanting to recall the past, she frantically fought to keep the memories from flooding her mind. She told herself that she was overthinking it, and again continued to walk towards the station. There's a sound. I thought it might be one of those devices, but now it just sounds like traffic. As she approached the front of Bakamachi, her eyes were assailed by a light, a glaring and radiant light. Kozma shivered in fear. So many times in the past she'd been assaulted like this by reflections in the mirror. Her mind overflowed with panic, unable to hold down her nightmarish past any longer. Was it a coincidence, or was she being targeted? She looked all around, praying it was just a misunderstanding. A short distance away, a white station wagon came to a stop. A man leaned out of the driver's window. In his hand was a mirror. He seemed to be adjusting its angle. The light struck Kozma's eyes, and again, frightened, she raised her hands to block the light, dashing across the pedestrian scramble in order to escape. Her mind ran rampant with terror and disorder. She wanted to get home as quickly as possible. She did not want to be here. Tears streamed down her face. It has to be a coincidence. She desperately repeated these words to herself, wiping away the tears with her fingers. Just then, light assailed her eyes once again. Its glare dazzled her, violence piercing her gaze. It really does feel like she's being hunted. The car from earlier had followed her. This time, only the driver's arm protruded from the window, and in his hand, he still held that very same mirror. Aww. Snapping out of her trance, she put everything she had into running from the station. She bumped into numerous pedestrians while pushing through the crowd. The fear kept her moving, paying no mind to all the mockery and insults sent her way. Upon arriving at the station, she turned around only to find the white car stopped at a traffic light scramble crossing. Kozma hid under the shadow of Hachiko's statue, huddling in place with bated breath, struggling to comprehend all that had happened. In her head, the same phrase repeated like a broken record. It's just a coincidence, just a coincidence, it's just a coincidence, it's just a coincidence, just a coincidence, just a coincidence. What? Startled by the voice, she lifted up her head. A man, seemingly a college student, stood by the Hachiko statue as if waiting for someone. He stood alone, his back turned to Kozma, and spoke into the phone pressed against his ear. His voice echoed in her head. That sailor suit was so hot, it was on fire? The sailor suit was so hot, it was on fire? The man did not turn toward her. Oh, that's creepy. Oh, it's doing the things, but like, it's because I have surround sound activated. It's coming from different directions and bouncing back and forth. Ugh. The phone remained against his ear. He seemed to be listening to whoever was speaking on the other end. However, not only did the man chime in and nod, he simply stood there, still as could be. Was he really on the phone? The voice echoed once again. She could not understand how or why, but the man was speaking of things related to her painful past. She began to tremble. It frightened her even so much to look at the man. She slowly crouched down on the spot, covering her ears. It's all a coincidence. It's all one big coincidence. She continued silently chanting this to herself. As she sat there, crouching in place, an hour passed. Many people passed by, but none tried to speak to her. When she finally managed to timidly raise her head, she found that the man was long gone. Dang, that sucked. So yeah, it seems like she's being targeted and basically being hunted. So that's gonna be really interesting to unravel in the future. Apparently we're in a new scene, in a scene like this scene I've never done the normal route for. So this is after we did the whole like not getting the sword, not falling to our death in Scramble Station, and we wake up in the hospital. Maybe all the normal beds are full because all the people had been injured in yesterday's earthquake. They just happened to put me in one of the beds in the psychiatric ward because of that. Or maybe they decided me collapsing was due to psychological factors rather than physical ones. Well, I suppose they wouldn't be wrong then. My mood was gradually getting worse and worse. Oh, never mind. I guess it did something a little different there, but not much. Oh. Alright. So this is where we're going to be deviating. And it ended with the sequence of us getting bullied by the three guys. And then, you know, Kozuha is the one that like comes in and kind of like takes revenge for us. I feel like we're going to see that actual scene play out. So we're going to go ahead and end here because this is a decent place to stop. I know this will mean this will be a much shorter episode than usual again, but I also feel like it's just such a good place to stop. Let's go ahead and just wrap it here. We ended the Yua story, and we're starting the final path I'm going to showcase besides the true end, which is the Kozuha path. Now, why did I choose this path? Frankly, it's a personal choice. Senna was probably one of my most interesting characters, and the one I thought was the most like well designed, and I was curious to see, so I picked her first. Second, I picked Yua because I felt like Yua's was fascinating, but also I felt like was really story relevant. There was a lot of questions I had. I really felt satisfied with that one. Like the Senna one I actually wasn't very satisfied with in the end. And then Kozuha is the one that I found her the most interesting character. I really thought that it was kind of cool to have someone whom you spoke with mind to mind, because that sounds like a fun idea to explore. I also wanted to know more about her past because her past seemed so just stark and so dramatic compared to everyone else's. Now, it doesn't mean I didn't want to go down the other routes. Rimi route will probably have a lot of really powerful story relevance, but I found her, of all the characters, to be personally the least interesting. ISA is a double-edged sword where I feel like in some ways she is one of the most fascinating characters and I want to know more about her, but I also find it's like half the conversations with her, it's not that they're very like cringy, it's more that they're just like, I don't know, it just doesn't feel like there's a lot of depth to them in general. And like while she's definitely like well designed and like her character, like she's pretty and like and interesting, but like I find her just not as compelling as some of the other characters. And then Nanami's probably my favorite character in the entire game, but I really don't want to showcase a really creepy romance implied sister route on the channel for multiple reasons. I'm really hoping I'm going to be pleasantly surprised and find out that it's actually just about a brother and sister, like, you know, finally bonding and connecting with one another, despite the fact that like he sabotages every time he talks with her, their relationship. I hope that's what it's going to be. So what's going to happen is we're going to do the Kozuha route together, probably take a few more episodes. In the meantime, I'm going to be playing the other routes in the background, so the Rimi, ISA, and Nanami routes, so that they're all done. So when we're done with this route, I should have unlocked the true or the final ending, and we're going to play that one together. And not everyone's going to agree with me on this. Some of you are going to be disappointed I didn't pick specific routes to showcase on the channel, but that's okay. It's part of the mystery, it's part of the fun, and I always think it's good to leave something for others to explore on their own if they're watching this without playing it. Just because majority of you don't do that, and which is great, I think it's the best way to do this is to play the games on your own and then join me to kind of hear what I think and kind of be able to go with a friend along for the ride. But just because that's not what everyone's going to do, and also because developers tend to not like it when you showcase everything, I try to do this middle ground, and I think it just works out best for everyone in the end. I promise though, if you want to hear my thoughts about the Nanami, Rimi, and ISA routes, I'll probably drop hints about it in the true ending as I go. Like I'll probably reference it a little bit, but then at the end I'm going to go over everything, and I'm going to be like talking about like which routes are my favorite and why, and I'll go into a lot of depth for the routes we didn't cover on the channel, so you can kind of get my thoughts on the matter. I usually even I'll write notes like as I go through them, and I basically will read to you my impressions as I went through the story in ways so that you can kind of still get a very similar experience as well, like what was on my mind, what did I think was happening, what were my theories, and why and how did they evolve as I went. I really try to make sure that you don't feel like I left anything out. So I'm looking forward to covering that. But next week we're gonna continue whatever this horrible music is implying. So we'll dive into all that chaos next time. So thank you so much for joining me. Hope you enjoy yourselves, and I'm looking forward to spending this time with you and seeing what future stories bring about. And until the next video, watching me up to see me in next. I'll see you there.